Perfect. Now, let me see. Whoa.
What was the Wi-Fi password?
1 second. Ocean Wagon 517. Okay. All right, so that shows up there. Live on Facebook. Episode 1, public, share to your page. Meeting is being live streamed. Got it. Okay. It's loading up the thing right now.
You're like,
Boom.
you're like, oh,
No, I know. I got it right here. So we're gonna just let it build up a little bit. Okay. All right. Leah, can you hear me good?
I can.
Perfect. Okay, let me get to the live so I can see the group chats. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank y'all for tuning in. We're just gonna let this run just a little bit, let some people build up on here. I'm really excited though. This is season 2, Voz Divisiones, episode 1. It's gonna be great. I'm really excited to have this conversation. Let me know what y'all think. Get some questions ready for the end of the show. You already know how we do it. Q&A with the guest coming up after the conversation. So yeah, get some questions ready regarding the pandemic, regarding vaccinations, regarding anything you hear along the way. Remember, these things are created to start a conversation within the community, share information, trade information, conversations. So please don't like shy away from joining the discussion. So let's see. I guess we can just get into it. We got some people tuning in already. All right. So officially, welcome to Voces Divisiones Season 2. We're on our way now. Episode 1, the new normal. The new normal with Leah Espinda-Brandt. I'm really excited about this episode. I feel like it's really important to discuss where we are now with the pandemic and just get into, a lot of other topics that mean a lot to us. So real quick, for those people who haven't tuned into Voz Divisiones is a platform where we use art as a catalyst to dive into issues within our community that mean a lot to us, things that we want to talk about. So on that note, I want to introduce the work of art for this particular episode. So the episode is New Normal, right? The pandemic. What are the updates on the pandemic? So for this, I chose this artwork. This artwork is about 4 feet by 4 feet. It's a painting of my son on wood. It's done using acrylics. Acrylics, jewels, fake plastic jewels. It's pastels. Yeah, it's just a mixed media thing, charcoal, graphite. So what I wanted to convey with this piece was a couple of things. So there's art. This was a piece that I made before the pandemic. So this is art before the pandemic, right? So when you look at it, you see like the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree also resembles like the holidays, things that changed that were different before the pandemic. The way that families gathered, the way we spent holidays, so much has changed, right? But not only that, there was another thing with this picture that made me think of the pandemic was my son standing there alone, which represents all of us feeling alone sometimes. Solitude, a lot of us had to isolate. We all had to isolate. And I feel like that was a really strong point something that we all had to grapple with. It was like we were together alone. But another thing with this piece that made me think of the pandemic was, again, it's my son. So then I started thinking about, what does this mean for future generations? What does it mean for like the future and my kids, like, is this the new normal? What is the new normal? What is this? What does it all signify for the future? So on that note, I think it's great to now welcome our guest to help us unpack some of these things, like what is the new normal? Where are we going with this, and what does it mean for all of us? So welcome. I want to welcome real quick Leah Espinda-Brandt, and I'm reading off her bio, written in the first person, but I'm going to read it just from my perspective. So Leah Espinda-Brandt is in her 27th year at Olmsted County Public Health. In those 27 years, she has had the great opportunity to work with new families, provide health care to those incarcerated, and assist community members in care coordination. Her current role is Disease Prevention and Control, DPC, Nurse Manager. This role includes oversight of clinics, program services, and supporting great staff. Clinics include tuberculosis, refugee health, and immunization. Programs include child passenger safety seat, child and teen checkup outreach, and lastly, disease investigation. Over the last 2 years, the DPC team has been heavily involved with the COVID response. So thank you so much, Leah, for joining us. Thank you for giving us your time, your information, your work. Thank you for the work that you do. I just want to start with asking you to tell us a little bit more about yourself. Olmsted County Public Health, what are your roles there? What is the role of DPC, and what is the role of Olmsted County Public Health DPC in the pandemic?
Yeah. So thank you for having me. I'm very excited to share. So the role of DPC is to keep, part of public health is to keep the community healthy. And part of the role then was, how do we do that during the pandemic? And I loved your piece of art because I can relate. It was, for me, I needed to be, part of my job was to do the pandemic, right? So I needed to be isolated, and how do I keep the rest of my family safe? But yet I needed to be here, or, you know, we as a team at Public Health worked very hard and close together so that we could keep the community safe. So it was isolating in a different way for me. And as far as DPC, I think we'll talk a little bit about public health. So we have the state public health and a local public health, of which I'm a member.
Okay,
And
so
yeah, hang on just a second. My screens are not moving for me.
oh, no worries. Let me see. Do you have the
Allow her.
yeah, it should.
Yeah, let me stop here for a second. Sorry.
No worries. Let me know if you're having trouble sharing the screen. You'll get a little glimpse of my curtain in the back.
All right. Hopefully we can see. Well, I'm having trouble with the notes on the screen. All right. We'll try this. If not, we're going to resort to paper.
No worries.
All right. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
All right. So again, thank you for having. So public health, we have, like I said, a local and a state public health, of which I'm part of the local public health. And part of our role is to protect the population from diseases and things like that. And we know our work could not get done without our partnerships. So we talk to media, schools, hospitals, clinics, businesses, and you, the community. You know, we couldn't have done the work without everybody's involvement. But some of the core functions of public health, there's 3 of them. One is an assessment, and that means collecting data to determine, what do we need to do? We look at policy development like, well, okay, so how do we get it done? And the assurance piece of, well, making sure it gets done, to make sure that we're out there getting vaccinations done, things like that. So how does it relate then? So how does public health core functions relate to the pandemic? So I just put up 3 visuals. One on the left-hand side is the vaccine data. It's just a screenshot. It's too small to look at, but it's an example of, we did early monitoring of transmission data prior to vaccinations. So it kind of showed, well, how much, of all the tests we're doing, how many people were positive for COVID. And I think that was important to know. But the other piece where we're missing was, it was important to monitor the impact of the disease. Like, of all those positives, how many were so ill that they ended up in the hospital? And how many positive cases needed to be in the ICU? So we kind of had to change some of the data we were looking at. And so recently, the CDC and then the state and then local are looking at things like new indicators, like how many new cases do we have over a 7-day period? How many new admissions into the hospital, and what percentage of beds in the hospital are taken up by those that are positive for COVID. And then in the upper right-hand corner, the COVID quarantine guide, that's more about policy development. We use the data to inform community on how to prevent both community-wide and individual-wise behaviors, such as how do we mask, how do we social distance, when do we get vaccinated, when should we call the doctor because we think we might have COVID, that type of thing. And then this lower right picture is more about assurance. How do we make sure all have access to care? Testing, vaccination, treatments. We look at the data. Were there groups of individuals that had limited access to any of those? And if so, how does the community serve those groups? That's how public health related to the pandemic.
So it's like multifaceted. Y'all really cover like every aspect of the pandemic, because some organizations will just deal in like one particular thing. They'll specialize in one thing, but being part of public health, you pretty much have to have your hand in every all steps of it, right?
Yeah, that's yes.
So then, I mean, regarding this data, regarding everything that you've had so far and where we are today, can you walk us through the pandemic timeline from your side of things, and just pretty much just an overview of being unfold.
Sure. So I'm going to start with December 2019 through May of 2020, and most of this information I obtained from the CDC. They actually have a museum of COVID timeline, and the link will be provided. So if other people, because it's very detailed, and we only had an hour, so I just selected a few events. The first one was in December 31st, 2019. Who was informed of pneumonia of unknown cause in China? So then, first of the year 2020, things that happened in 2020. The new coronavirus was identified. The public health emergency was declared. COVID-19 became the official name of this pandemic. We began human trials for the vaccine. We began production of the vaccine. The first dose was given in December of 2020. We were looking at treatments, antiviral treatments. A little historical fact, March 11th of 2020, Olmsted County had their first COVID case. So then we jumped to 2021. We start to see COVID variants. The worldwide cases surpassed 1 million. We started distributing home test kits, so you didn't necessarily have to go to the clinics. And then by March 2021, U.S. had administered over 100 million vaccinations. Delta variant became dominant, and then we are looking at endorsing pediatric doses for the vaccine and boosters. And then in October, November of 2021, Omicron came into our picture. And today, what are we doing? We're still doing those same things. We continue to gather the data. We're updating the recommendations with science-based data, and we continue to provide vaccines and treatments. So our work really hasn't stopped.
Oh, so it's yeah, the entire step of the way, huh? Every step of the way, y'all been there. So then, now can you tell us more about, let's say, like cases? So has there been? I mean, I know you were telling me before that you get reports like every Wednesday. So
Yeah.
what is it looking like as far as like the overall like view of the data as far as like okay cases, vaccinations, variants? Are you seeing any kind of like patterns? What does the data look like there, like in specific, like specifically regarding like that, like the cases, vaccinations, and variants?
Yeah, so I split my screen with some of the data today. So as of today, Olmsted County community level is high. It means that we have over 200 cases, that we have over 10 people in the hospital. So, so knowing that, then we would say, based on that, when you're in an indoor setting with large amount of people or people that may have chosen not to get vaccinated, we would recommend masking and social distancing. So knowing that data can help people make that choice of how to keep themselves safe and their loved one as well. We had for every 100,000 people in our population, we had 454 positive cases. And then our hospitalizations have also risen in this past week. And even our ICU beds, unfortunately, is also going up. And so we just got new information today, and the CDC will come out tomorrow, and they'll tell us what our COVID community level is. I suspect we'll still be in high for at least another week. Now, the hard part with this data is, you know, the data we get is when you go test, you're going to a clinic setting. Well, we're doing a great job of at-home tests, right? How do you test at home so you're not going to the party or whatever? Those aren't reportable. So we're missing some data that can help us make good data-driven decisions. And then the other thing is on the right-hand side, we're kind of looking at positive cases. And I tried to pull out some of the ethnicities, and it's very small. But this is the type of data that the state is looking at that we have access to as well. We really would like it at a local level, and so we are working very hard to get it down to that level, but right now that's not possible. So I think for the case incidents per 100,000, Latinx, we have 33,591 positive cases. Pretty significant. And so what does that mean for us? It means, you know, those people of color or indigenous communities have a higher risk anyway of diabetes, high blood pressure, things like that. So they're at a more increased risk of severe COVID. And I'm sure as you are lived experiences, right, in the community, this isn't probably surprise anybody. But we think it's important to share this data so that we hope we can work together so we can all achieve health and some resiliency from this pandemic. And then if you look at, let's jump to vaccines then. Again, I'm going to look on the left-hand side, total population. We have about 129,000 in Olmsted County. About 81.6% of those have at least one dose of vaccine. That's the second highest vaccinated county in the state of Minnesota. Pretty proud of that. And then out of those residents that are 65 years and older, 93% of them are vaccinated. On the right-hand side, this data was by the source of MDH, Data and Stats. The Latinx race by age that were fully vaccinated through April of 2022. So those children that were 12 plus, 12 and up. So we're looking at a totality of ages. About 57% of that community is fully vaccinated. But then we look at breaking it down and saying, well, those between 12 and 18, 73% of those are fully vaccinated. Pretty awesome. Those between 19 and 44, 71%. Not too bad. Those between 45 and 64 are 86%. And those that are 65, right, our grandmothers and grandfathers are pretty well vaccinated at 93%. Can we do better? Certainly. But this is the kind of data I think helps And then it helps the community as well, saying maybe we should start talking to the parents and getting the young children vaccinated, or maybe even those moms and dads. We could boost that rate up a little higher so that everybody's more protected.
Good point. Now, and what about the variants? I know there's like, so there's a couple of them. Well, I know the Delta variant and Omicron. See, but I had never heard of the other ones there, like the Alpha and the BA1, BA2. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, sure. So the Alpha was way back when we first started. It was Alpha. Then we moved to, there's some in between smaller ones. Then we had a Delta. Then we had Omicron, and actually Omicron, BA1, BA2, there's actually BA3, 4, and 5 now, is a variant of Omicron. So, so it's like, well, what's a variant, right? So a variant is, it's defined as something that is slightly different than the original. So I love the example that the CDC gives. It uses an analogy of a virus to like a tree. As a tree grows, it has branches. The branches that are on the tree are similar, but yet kind of different, right? Some branches die. Some actually grow really big and they get into your neighbor's yard, right? Or that type of thing, scratch the car when you're parking. They might even grow around an object like a fence wire. Have you ever seen a tree where you got a fence, you know, the tree, the wire is going through the fence?
Yeah.
That's kind of how viruses can do. They're similar to one another, but a little different. Some may die off and we might not hear about them. Others grow strong and they resist the vaccinations and the treatments that we are using to try to stop the spread of the disease. And so scientists work on finding that appropriate vaccine and treatment to combat the stronger vaccines, leading to less severe disease, hospitalizations, and even death. So, and they're going to be around. We know viruses all mutate. They all have variants. It's the ones that we look at that are so strong and that the vaccines may not be as effective. So we have to keep looking at the data to make things better for us.
So it's starting to look like, especially with the talks of the variant, it's like this is like a long term, if not permanent type deal. So then with having that in mind, well, and having that data in mind, having that knowledge that there's going to be variants, there's going to be like, it's going to adapt to certain situations or whatever. What kind of things are being put into place, or what is like the overall like things that are being put into place to help with all of this, to help with the pandemic, like moving forward, like policies or systems, you know, what kind of things are in place?
That's a great question. And we actually have some things in place, right?
Yeah.
So that's the good thing. So things in place that we're testing. We're still testing, and we encourage people to continue testing. So you're like, what's testing? Well, it's taking a sample either from your nose or mouth, and then it's putting it in a tube, or there's several different styles of this, and it will tell you if you are infectious at the time of the test. And that means you're infectious. You could potentially give it to somebody else who wasn't vaccinated, who can't get vaccinated because they're immunocompromised, right? Those types of things. And so that's important for us to know what our status is. Now, the great thing about the testing is we've gone to, everybody used to, you'd drive through or you'd go into a clinic setting. The government has since worked with scientists to develop at-home tests so that you can kind of like preemptively know, yep, I'm feeling like I have some of the COVID symptoms. I better test to make sure, should I really go to the party, right? So those are some things that we're doing there. And then we look at why do we test? Well, we test because you might have symptoms. You test after having been around someone who tested positive after day 5. If you're going to work, sometimes your work may ask you to test. If you're traveling to other countries, because this is a pandemic, which means it's worldwide, it's just not in the United States. And then your healthcare provider may want to know before they do a procedure if you have COVID. Now, there's a couple kinds of tests. There's a laboratory test. You go to the clinic and get it. And then they have the rapid test that you can actually do at home. And then the important piece about it is when you are positive, that you stay home for at least 5 days, isolate yourself. And then if you're negative, still practice those safe practices, and then just keep monitoring for symptoms and test again if you have those symptoms. And the other thing I will share with you is where to get your free home test kits, because those are available too. And the third thing that we continue doing, vaccinations. We know vaccinations are the best means to protect oneself from getting really ill or hospitalized or even dying, and that also being vaccinated helps protect others around us. And vaccines help our bodies. We develop an immunity to the virus, and it takes about 2 weeks. So kind of keep that in mind too. If you're going someplace and you haven't gotten vaccinated, it takes about 2 weeks for your body to say, hey, I need to build up some protection. The nice thing about that is your body will remember. So if the disease comes in again, it will fight it off. The other thing that we know about vaccinations is, unfortunately, most of them are given by injection. And I don't know too many people who are really excited about about needles, but unfortunately, that is right now how most of these vaccinations are giving. Right now, as far as the ages, 6 to 4-year-olds, we currently do not have an approved vaccine, but we do have approved vaccines from 5 to 11, 12 to 18, and then over anybody over 19. There's different kinds of vaccines that people can use.
And what about so then is a vaccination considered a treatment, or is like or no, vaccine is prevention.
Yeah, prevention. So, and we have 3 kinds. So we currently have 3 kinds in the United States that we are approved for use or authorized in the United States. So we have a Pfizer, and that one is from age 5 and boosters. We have a Moderna, so anybody 18 and older, and then the Janssen or J&J is 18 plus and boosters. And then we talk about what does it mean if people say, are you up to date? Are you current? And for that, it means that you've had all the doses in that primary series and 1 booster if you're eligible. So it gets kind of confusing, and that's why it's nice to go into a clinic setting because they look all that stuff up for you. And I'd like to share some information about safety and monitoring, because I think there's been some concerns about it. And me as a mom, I have children as well. I did a lot of research, and I looked at sources that were reputable to get my information, because I certainly don't want any of my children, I don't want to harm my children either, right? I want to protect them. So some things that I do know is that we do have systems in place like VSafe. So we have 3 different entities and VAERS where they're constantly looking at reports of side effects. So if you have a side effect, there's a report you fill out to share, so we can gather that data to find out, oh, this is happening a lot. We better do more investigation. But we also know that these vaccines have been, they didn't use anything new. A lot of the stuff they used to produce the vaccines have been around for decades. And the other thing, it's safer than actually getting the illness. If it's anybody's had the illness and ended up in the hospital. And then we know it's effective at preventing serious illness and limiting the spread. And then the last piece is just scheduling. Vaccinations are part of one's health record. So we're going to need some information when you go to get vaccinated. It's like your name, address, date of birth, any allergies, and then a consent to say, hey, I understand the risks, because there are risks involved. And that even though they're minimal, you sign a consent. So those are some of the things, but I think you also mentioned, if I'm correct, some treatments. Is that correct?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So treatments, now we have a couple. So we have some antivirals that stop the virus from multiplying in your body. We have some what's called monoclonal antibodies, and they help to limit the amount of virus in your body. Now, some great things that happened recently is for those that might have mild to moderate illness and are higher risk or have been exposed to someone, you can now, it's called treat to test, a test to treat. So you could test, and if you still are negative or you start having symptoms, you can actually get a prescription and have it filled. So you get some of these over-the-counter medications. So it's allowing more people to have treatment so they don't get really, really sick.
So is that a version? So that would be to complement the vaccines, like.
Yeah, so let's say for some reason you chose not to, or again, remember we talked about it takes 2 weeks for that antibodies to build up. And so you might have already, someone might have already been exposed. And so then you end up with COVID. So what do you do then? So then we can give you treatment so that you don't end up in the hospital, that you might be feeling kind of yucky, but the antivirals will help you not end up in the hospital, hopefully not pass either.
Ah, okay. Now, antiviral stop the virus. Okay, so then options for those referral. Okay, so you need a referral for the treatments. There's different.
Yeah. So at the bottom of this screen, there's actually a COVID test to treat locator. It is in English. And like I said, I'll provide all those resources. So if someone, it's just nice to know that there are options out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and let me see. Yeah. Then we'll be posting that also on our page after this too. So with all of this, with all of this information, all of this data, all of the amazing work that you all are doing in public health, what do you see as? I mean, this feels like this. I mean, it's here to stay, right? It brings us to like, what is the new normal? What do we see moving forward? How do we adjust? And like, what do you see as some of the things that definitely are part of our new reality?
Yeah. So, because I'm more in the trenches of providing some of these services, I have to rely on other community partners, the epidemiologists, some of the scientists, right, to say what they're seeing. So it's more about that. We know that we've learned so much in the last 2 years plus about testing, vaccinations, and treatments. But we have to remember this is a new virus. We've never had this before. Whereas you look at the influenza, the flu virus, that's been around over 100 years. So we have a lot of data, a lot of information. So I think we have to be patient and be willing to look at data as things change, because it's 2.5 years old, right? That infancy age. And I think as public health, along with your community, other partners, we're going to continue to assess. We're going to develop. We're going to assure that we keep all community members healthy and safe. Now, is it going to be like a straight road? Yep, we're just going. It's going to go away. We are already seeing that that's not the case. We think we're getting low, and then we have something, and then we're going back up. Then we go down, and we see that probably is going to happen over some time. What that time frame is, don't know yet, but it's not going to just be we're here and then a straight slant down. It eventually will, those peaks and valleys will get probably longer in between, shorter in how many cases, and then we'll probably end up seeing it similar every season, kind of like if you with influenza, right? Every year we offer the flu vaccine. we'll probably be doing something similar with COVID as well.
So do you feel like this is so for sure these things like the ones that are pictured here. So I'm looking at vaccinations, masking, testing, hand washing, and social distancing. Do you think those are definitely like the core things to take seriously or take into consideration moving
Yeah,
forward?
you know, if vaccinations, all those things happen, even if it wasn't COVID, right? Flu season too. We say get your flu vaccine. If you have a cough or some sort of symptoms, mask up. Don't go to work when you're sick. Those types of things. Wash your hands. Um, Test. You can test for influenza. Those are basic things that we recommend so that we can keep people healthy and that we can learn more information about um, the disease. So whether it be COVID, it's going to continue with COVID. It's not going away like many of the other diseases, chickenpox, mumps, measles. Hopefully we don't see them very often in this community, but they're still out there.
Mm. So right now is a good time to start. If anybody has any questions, feel free to start adding them into the live chat. If you have any questions about whether it be whatever you just heard, the cases, vaccinations, just anything that you can think of. If you have any questions right now, it would be a good time to start adding them to the live chat so we can start so we can mention them right now in real time. In the meantime, I have a couple of questions real quick. So I think one of the biggest things for me this year was me and my family, we ended up with the Delta variant. We got hit with COVID earlier this year. What it really taught me was how fragile my body was. Like I was thinking, I probably had COVID before. I'm sure I already had it, but not until I was like bedridden, I couldn't move. I That's when I felt like, oh, now I have it. And I felt so fragile though. After that, I felt like I don't know. And all my family had it. My mom, she has COPD. She has a lot respiratory problems, so we have, and my sister had it, and all of us, my son had it. So it was like it hit really, really close to home. And that's besides people that I've known that we've lost to this.
Yeah.
Now, that's when I really took it seriously. Like, okay, good thing I was vaccinated, and then my mom, I was worried about her, but she had a booster too on top of her vaccination. So I feel like that definitely, like, I don't know if she would have made it out of that. But I started to think about how I could fortify my body. So besides the vaccination that I already had, I was thinking about other ways, nutrition. Like, do you know anything about any kind of correlation between like nutrition or any kind of like eating well or like some kind of supplements or anything like that just to help strengthen the immune system?
Yeah, so we know vitamin C. There's some studies that say vitamin C. I think there were some studies done relating to vitamin D. Again, I don't have the specifics of those, but vitamin C helps the immune system. And just generally eating healthy, right? So you don't end up with some of the high risk things like diabetes and high blood pressure. And some of it is genetics, right? So you could eat really healthy and still have some of that. But just having a nice weight, exercising, those type of things. So if you should become ill, your body's in a healthier state than if you weren't doing some of those things.
So, and what about, I think, I'm trying to see if I could go back to full screen. Okay. So, let's do side by side. Wait, no, 1 second. Gallery immersive. Yeah, boom, boom. Okay, there you go. All right. So another thing is, do you see a correlation with what's one of the biggest takeaways, like between correlations, like between vaccinations and cases, or vaccinations and the masking? Do you see the cases shoot up when the masks come down? Do you see, I mean, what do you see?
So this is, again, personal because I'm doing this every day. When vaccinations came into play, we saw cases tend to go down. When masks go off, or we say, okay, now you can spend the holidays together, we see a little spike in those case numbers. And we have certainly seen that in the last probably 3 weeks or so. Cases have gone up again. We haven't, because the COVID community level went down to medium. So in that behavior from the CDC says you don't necessarily have to mask, but if you're at high risk, they recommend you mask all the time. Well, then all of a sudden, our community level went back up to a high risk, and people are like, okay, that's nice, but I'm done wearing the mask. I'm done, so right? And so it's how do we think about helping our own self and each other be safe as well? And I think some of it is a personal choice. If you're around the people you know are vaccinated and those types of things, I think it's fine. But if you're going to larger events where you're not so sure, where they were, are they vaccinated, things like that, you might want to think twice about, well, how can I protect myself? And certainly, how can I protect those that I love?
Yeah, I think that's what it really boils down to. For me, that's one of the biggest things, because I could tell myself, and a lot of us could tell ourselves, like, for a long time, it was like, it wasn't really real. Like, people are, oh, it's probably a cold. Oh, and you see all these things, right? And then people share the memes and whatever from wherever they get them from. But it's not until you start seeing real world consequences and people that like are passing away, and like my friends, like parents and like teachers left and right, and the county where I'm from in my hometown in Texas had one of the highest rates like anywhere. So seeing all this stuff and seeing my loved ones go through this, that's when it's like, okay, so this is real, like real. And then I started to think, like, man, I at least have to do whatever I could personally to have that peace of mind that I at least was trying to help preserve them, or like keep them safe. And now when it comes to home testing, how accurate is that? Like, I mean, how, because I know that the government was sending some home tests out or whatever.
Yep.
And we got a couple. I gave my son a test. That's where he tested positive. That's when I found out he had it. But and then I tested negative, but we're in the same house. So how accurate are they? I mean, is it a matter of like how you take it, or?
Yeah, they are accurate. But again, you have to follow procedure. Timing is important too, because if you take the swab from your nose, and if you don't have enough virus on the swab, you're not going to test, you won't have a positive result. If you wait till, that's why they've been looking at day 5 is the day they're recommending testing. You may have enough virus on that swab to test positive. So may I ask, so after you tested negative, did you end up with symptoms afterwards ever?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't. So yeah. Wait. Hold on. Let me double check that. Actually, that was when I ended up with COVID, because my son was like the first one to have hints of it, and he's in the room, and I'm just thinking he was sick, so I'm giving him, Tylenol and oranges and everything, and then
yeah.
Well, and then they were like, no, you should like test them, and I was like, all right, well, let me tell. And then sure enough, and then that happened, and right after was like, I woke up the next day like hit by a truck. I'm just like, oh my God, what is this? Yeah, that's actually how it happened.
Yeah. And so they are accurate. You have to, it's the technique, and but they are accurate.
So then, now the boosters, we have variants coming. We have remember to feel free, by the way, real quick to add any more questions. Is your time. Um, boosters variants, boosters variants. So is this perpetual? Do we see this going on just like the flu, where it is yearly? Is that just to keep up with the variants? Is that how you see this playing out?
Yeah, I see that very similar to even the flu vaccine. Every year they decide which four parts of the flu should be strains of the flu should be used to, well, let's see, how do I want to say this? Every year the components of the flu vaccine is a little different, hoping to match what they think will be circulating in the community. And I see that happening with some COVID as well. You know, how do we do a better match of making sure that the vaccines we are giving can prevent or minimize the side effects and the serious illness of those variants that are coming into play. And I don't know if that is one, you know, one kind of vaccine or to keep changing them every year. You know, again, I'm not the scientist, but those are some of the things that they're looking at.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. I mean, because the booster, is it a booster? Is it a different booster for every variant? Or is it a different vaccination for every variant? Or is it just a booster that's all encompassing?
Yeah, right now it's the same. It's the same formula makeup. The
Okay.
doses are different based on age, but
Ah,
it wasn't a different one based on each kind of that variant.
so the same kind of routine regarding vaccinations and boosters goes for like every age. So like say if you're a kid or a teen, do you still do the same kind of regimen as an adult?
Those are great questions. It's no. So typically it will be most of the Pfizer, because that's the only one right now that's approved from 5 and older. It's a 2-dose series. It wasn't, and then you have to ask for permission. The FDA has to grant the company's permission to say, okay, now approve the 5 to 12-year-olds to get boosters, things like that. And so that is something that just recently happened. We used to wait 3 weeks in between the first dose and the second dose in the series. Based on data, they're really recommending that the time frame changed, right? So dosages, timing, when do we get boosters, how many boosters do we get, actually is changing, evolving based on data. So it's different for every single one of them. The J&J is only a 1-dose series.
Yeah, that's
Moderna is a 2-dose series.
so then okay, so we have a couple of comments in the section. So we have a comment that says I believe that it's all about the immune system, and I also believe that if the body had any health issues, they are in your personal DNA and wouldn't have come up till later in life. This virus is going to ravage the body enough to speed the process, or if you have an illness, this allows the virus to weaken the immune system. Then what normally wouldn't kill you will unfortunately kill you. So I'm wondering if it's all about the okay. So what do you take away from that comment?
Yeah, it's when we do know that those people that are higher risk for some of those illnesses that comment spoke about, right? Having COVID or even influenza, right, can impact that body, and being healthy. So having other diseases will definitely impact how COVID can impact how COVID will react.
Now, do you know if also so Okay, it says we have another question. It says, does the vaccine have a stronger effect to a certain variant? So does it, when you have the vaccine, does it hit another variant stronger than the other?
Yeah, those are the questions that they're actually using data on.
Okay.
And so when we just are seeing that BA2 or BA3, it's just arriving here in the United States. So the numbers are low. So it's hard to make a judgment based on that, the few that we have. So it's going to take some time before we know those answers for sure. But when they're making the vaccine, they're really looking to say this vaccine will be true for as many variants as comes to be. Again, it's a new virus, but
Yeah, and I think what's important to mention, again, we've mentioned this last season, but I feel like it's really important to cover. And I'm not sure if you have any if you know anything about this particular part, but a lot of people some people are still on the fence about getting vaccinated, or still on the fence about certain things. Do you know a little bit about how the vaccine was created, especially in that time frame, right? Because everybody's like, "Whoa, how was it made so fast?" And like, do you have any insight into that?
yeah. So part of our role as we give vaccines, it's our role to understand some of how vaccines are made, whether it be COVID or vaccines for children, for school, things like that. And we know they followed the same process they have for many other vaccines. Because of some of our childhood vaccines, you and I have had childhood vaccines for many years. Many years ago, we had them, right? So they take that information, the science that they know way back then, and apply it to now. So things can be made much faster and is safe. We also know there's the mRNA. We've been looking at that for other things, other treatments, other diseases. So they take information that they learned of that. How does that apply to the vaccine? The other thing is typically we're looking for people to be part of the trial study. And because of all the worldwide thing, I think the people were signing up. So it didn't take them as long to get through the trial amount. And then the government also offered money because it costs money to do these trials and things like that too. How do they do the startup to say, hey, we want you to, I'd say, how do we don't want that to be a barrier to your doing the next age group or expanding it from 1 dose to 2 doses to 3 doses, right? So those all the things played into that, but it was the same process used for all vaccines.
And one of the things I think I heard too is like a lot of it, like it was the structure of the vaccine was already pretty much done. Like the COVID, so it was like coronavirus, right? They had this stuff to attack a coronavirus. Now,
right.
COVID, it was a version of a coronavirus, but they already had the vaccine for the coronavirus. They've been having that. Now they had to tweak it for the COVID-19, which didn't take as much time as starting from scratch, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That's kind of like what I got last time. So okay, so like, let's see if there's anybody. This is your chance. This is your chance. Last minute questions. Feel free to put any last one in the comments. Now, let's see. I got a couple left. Being contagious. Okay, does the vaccine, when you get vaccinated, you have symptoms? You have are you contagious when you're vaccinated? Like when you're having these symptoms? I've always wondered.
Well, like that's a hard part because you're not contagious because of the vaccine. You could be contagious because you could have had, been exposed, had the COVID, and just happened to have the vaccine within that same time frame. So you have to. It's not because of the vaccine. It's because it's all about timing.
And they say that you, I don't know where I heard this, but it was like you will show up positive for a long time. like it once you get it?
Yes, yep.
Like,
So especially like with the PCR test, the test that they often do in the hospital clinic settings, it's just so sensitive, right? So you may still show positive, but you might not be infectious. You're still seeing some of the dead shedding cells of the virus, but it's not activated and it's not infectious. When do you lose that infectious period? Again, it used to be we'd say 14 days, then it was down to 10 days. Now we're saying, isolate 5 days, but wear a mask for another 5 days, those types of things. So again, it's new, so we're looking at
different things. So then
different things. Yeah.
after like let's say after say you had the vaccination but you didn't get boosted or anything, um how long after that does like your immune system start to lose that, how long does the vaccine last in your body to fight,
Yeah, that's a great question. I've
Yeah.
seen lots of different studies, right? So I can't say, um, I can't give an exact number because it depends on what study you're looking at. They do know that the vaccine efficacy wanes, and that's true for other vaccines as well. That's why we have like the tetanus, right? We get a booster every 10 years, because we know that that protective factor um, goes away. So
well
I
how,
certainly can get that. I can get the data for you. I just don't have it at my fingertips right now.
how often I'm not sure, I'm not all the way up to date with it, but how often should you get a booster right now?
Well, again, it kind of depends on. So if you you should have at least one booster, except for children because that hasn't been approved. So if you've been 18 or over, you should get a booster. Now there's a second booster, but it's only right now for people over 50 that have certain diagnoses, right? So they could get 4. You might even have a case where you were immunocompromised, so you could have gotten possibly 5. So these are some things to be chatting with your provider about, to give you some guidance on when is the best time for me to have the booster. Should I get the second booster? The timing of that.
Yeah, I think my mom, she has 2, I believe she's already gotten 2. And she was telling me the same thing. Like we were talking yesterday, and she was like, "I don't think that I would have survived it if I didn't have it." Like I said, she has COPD. She's prone to getting pneumonia. She's had pneumonia. She just like stopped having pneumonia like a week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, she has a nebulizer and things like that. And yeah, we honestly do not know what would have happened if she didn't, have
Mhm.
those and stuff. So yeah, so like I said, altogether I went at the beginning of this pandemic was like, yeah, okay, boom, okay, then it was like, okay, wait, okay, there's some signs that this is like, and then it's like, oh, whoa, I got it. And then it's like, oh, my mom just like her life, was, she got away, just got away. So then it started to become more and more real, and now looking forward, we're just keeping that in mind, keeping our health, our wellness, and those of our loved ones, and it's society as a whole. I'm just like, I don't know, that's just now it's like very near and dear to me more than ever before. But on that note, I want to just thank you for your information. Thank you for
Certainly.
your time. Are there any last things that you want to share with us? Any last comments? Anything you want us to do after the episode, look into, or
Yeah, I think part of our role is, public health is there to help, right? And so, what are some things? Is there information that you want to know about? Is there information about how we're presenting the information? If is that, could we do better there? And is there information that we didn't provide? I mean, there's other components even of the vaccine. We can talk about the mental health that was affected by I mean, the pandemic, things like that. We can talk about there's the long haul, those that did end up in the hospital for a long amount of time. You know, they're still having side effects of the virus as well. But you know, we would encourage, you know, keeping yourself safe, masking when it's appropriate, testing if you have symptoms, and we know vaccines are the best way to protect yourself from getting the disease severely, ending up in the hospital or in ICU.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So anybody who's listening, who's watching this now or later, feel free to put any kind of comments like that. Do you have any information, any ideas on how public health, not just Olmsted County, but specifically Olmsted County with Leah, but public health in general? Like, what do you think would be better for you? Like, how do you think that they could share information in different ways? What kind of information services would you like to know more about regarding public health? So yeah, this is your chance to really amplify your voice. So please feel free to add any kind of comments in this video, wherever you watch this. Once again, thank you so much to Leah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bobby, so much for having me.
Thank you so much to all for all the work that you do, all the work that you're going to continue to do. It's super, super important. I can't wait to talk more with you in the future to unpack more of the stuff that you do there. Thank you so much to our sponsors, to Mayo Clinic, to the Minnesota State Arts Board, to the voters of Minnesota, to ACLA. Thank you all to all the viewers, everybody participating. This is going to be an amazing season 2, and we're getting it started off in a wonderful way. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll see y'all again the next one. Okay.